Tartare for now. Take 8.
There it is.
There it is. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Home Movies. I'm Alison Roman, and I have just gotten back from a very long book tour. I did the United States, I did London, I did 3 cities in Australia. It was amazing, exhausting, exhilarating, gratifying. I loved it. I ate at a lot of restaurants. I basically didn't do any cooking for like 2.5 months, which was actually pretty challenging for me. I didn't love it, but it was a good opportunity to like see what's out there, like what are the trends, what are the people saying, what are the streets saying? The streets are saying, and the people are saying, and the restaurants are serving tartare.
Heard it here first.
This is not new. This is not like a new food. It is like an epidemic, though, of like literally every restaurant I went to has a tartare in the menu. But pretty much across the board, I was like, enough with the tartare. But then I was like, I do order it every time. And I was like, but I won't ever make it at home, and that's why I order it every time. I also am like extremely charmed by anything involving like a tableside service, which some restaurants did extremely well. And I was like, it was like going to the theater for me. I couldn't get enough of it. I love those flavors, and that's why I order tartare. It's like shallots, anchovy, caper, mustard. Like, hello, it's like an Alison Roman mood board. So it did get me thinking, like, okay, well, I could just have those flavors with a steak. Like, I don't need the raw meat of it all. And perhaps it could even be more delicious. But because I like my steak on the rare side, I was like, well, this should work. And I'm pleased to report it does.
We're just
it does
getting
work.
word from the streets that the tartare works.
The tartare works, yeah. But for me, this is sort of like a really good opportunity to use like something quick-ish cooking. So I'm gonna use hanger steak, but TLDR, it doesn't really matter what kind of steak you're using or cooking with, because what matters is the sauce. Some have garlic, some have shallots, some have both, some have capers, some have, the list goes on and on and on. So I'm taking one route to Tartare Town. Tartare. But a cut that I've never, I guess, really talked about, especially not here, in this safe space, is hanger steak, which is probably like the first cut of steak I fell in love with as a really young cook person. And that was because I was shopping a lot at Trader Joe's and they had it all the time. It's a beautiful, wonderful steak for the grill, for the stovetop. I can't recommend it enough. It hangs beneath the rib and the loin. There is one per animal. I like to sear it as one piece. And then as I'm carving, you'll notice these 2 lobes, these 2 sides, become a little bit more distinct and separate.
So a loaf refers to like the
Lobe.
Lobe. Oh, I see. I was like, I never heard of a loaf of meat before.
Like a lobe, like an earlobe. What's the word lobe mean? Aren't your liver is a lobe? It's like one of 2, right? Yeah. Lobe has to be one of 2.
It's like technically a roundish and flattish part of something. Typically, each of 2 or more such parts divided by a fissure, often projected or hanging.
Wow. Like an earlobe or a hanger steak, everything's a lobe. I'm in lobe with lobes. Lobe wide, we're all eating hanger steak. I don't know.
I loved it.
We lobe it. We're taking a quick commercial break from this episode of Home Movies to properly thank our sponsor, Maker's Mark. As you may remember, a few weeks ago, we took a little field trip to Loretto, Kentucky to visit the Maker's Mark distillery, and honestly, we had a great time. We saw mashing, we saw fermenting, we saw distilling, we saw sheep. I bottled, I hammered, I tasted, and we learned so much about the process and who Maker's Mark is as a company. And all around, I can confidently say 10 stars. Except my bottling, which maybe 5 stars. I also like that while they honor tradition, they're not afraid to improve upon it to see if they can't get things a little more different, a little more interesting. Not unlike Cobb salad, Alison's version, or Maker's 46, Bill's version, which incidentally makes an excellent fizzy brown derby. Back in Brooklyn, we learn lessons of duality, that bitter tastes better with a sweet. Inside me are 2 wolves, and like a good Cobb salad or whiskey cocktail, you can be classic and modern at the same time. So once again, thank you, Maker's Mark. Cheers. Cheers. Man, a lot of meat slapping in this day.
Like, stomp.
There's a million ways to skin a cat. There's a million ways to sear a steak. I think the easiest, most basic way, and a way that has never ever failed me, is get your skillet really, 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 really hot. Add a thin layer of oil. I use a neutral oil like canola, grapeseed, whatever. Season your meat with salt and pepper. Add the meat. Let it go for like 5-ish minutes. Flip it for like another 4. Take it off, rest it. So I'm going flat side, so you can see this is like the lobe side. I'm going flat side first. And as always, you wanna do it away from you. I'm gonna start checking around the 4-minute mark and we'll see if it needs a little bit more time. Oh yeah, we're flipping, baby. All right, so that was actually closer to 5 minutes on the first side. I'm gonna let it go like 3-ish minutes on the second side. Anytime you're searing anything, a chicken, a pork chop, lamb, steak, the second side will always take less time than the first side. Your pan, your skillet is already primed. It's super hot, hotter than before, hotter than you ever thought possible. There's more fat in the skillet, which also helps sort of like carry the heat. So it's never, almost never like an even 5 and 5. It's almost always like a 5 and a 3, or like a 6 and a 2, or what, you get the idea. So I'm gonna add the second piece. In my excitement, I put the steak on the cutting board, but I really should have put it on a plate because I haven't made my sauce yet. So I need a place to chop my sauce ingredients. Also, I wanna like catch these juices. So I don't know why I did that. It just seemed right at the time. I was like, the meat must go on the cutting board, but I'd never do that, so. Coming out. Okay, so see all this stuff in the skillet left over? It's juices from the meat, it's fat from the meat, it's delicious, meaty meat bits. I'm gonna save all that in the skillet, and I'm just gonna toast my bread in that. It's time to make the sauce. Okay, I'm gonna do shallot. I don't think we need this much shallot in this tartare, if I'm being honest, or this steak-like tartare. So I'll use half of this large shallot, but how many lobes? It's a real lobe show. Welcome to the lobe show. Today we're talking all things lobes. Lisa lobe, ear lobes, steak lobes, shallot lobes.
Today on Lobe Movies.
Wow. Okay, so I could have used this shallot, but instead I'm using this shallot, but it's more or less roughly the same amount of shallot. In a rare moment, I'm gonna finally chop this shallot, which I feel like I never do. I feel like I always only thinly slice. And I'm not gonna like cover this with vinegar to let it pickle. I'm just gonna kind of add everything at the same time. We're not looking for pickled shallots here. We're looking for shallots to be like a part of the sauce in all of their like sort of punchy, raw, allium glory. Not that anyone that works at a caper company is listening to me, but enough with the tall, skinny jars. We cannot get our spoons in, we cannot get our forks in. You have to dump the whole thing to use it, and then put the thing back in the thing to keep any capers inside. Enough. It's one of those things that we've just accepted as part of our lives for so many years. We've never stopped to think, why?
If you're watching this, Mr. Caper.
I'm coming for you. I'm gonna do about like 2 tablespoons of capers. If you're a real caperhead, do more. Now I have to put all the capers back in the jar. People are like, oh, but if you use a tiny... Enough. This is insane. It's like there's a solution for everything. People are gonna be like, well, actually, if you... I'm like, I don't care. This is not convenient, and we all know it, so let's stop pretending that it is. Why not just half the height and double the width?
So you want like a salsa jar?
I don't buy salsa. I don't know what kind of jar comes in.
Never once seen salsa?
I don't even know what it looks like in a jar, frankly. A nice thing to do if you're not committed to all the anchovies in the tartare sauce is to leave them out entirely, serve them on the side, or put in as many as you want and then serve the rest on the side. Especially if you're using a tin of anchovies, you can be like, how do I store them afterwards? And the honest answer is I often find myself just using them all that night. And if they don't go in the food, they go alongside the food. If you're looking for a real answer, I put them in a also like tiny resealable container and cover it with olive oil. Okay, so season, salt and pepper. Again, anchovies are salty, Worcestershire is salty. You don't need too much. I'll start with like a half teaspoon of Worcestershire and about 2-ish tablespoons of vinegar. And now I'll add our herbs, starting with chives. So this is where I'd say this sauce becomes more of like salsa verde-y rather than like strictly like tartare seasoning. But I think because we're taking liberties already by the fact that we're not making tartare, it's just sort of like tartare. I feel fine about that.
I don't think I have once eaten tartare.
What? You've never once eaten tartare?
Yeah,
Not once in a restaurant?
never. I have tuna tartare.
You've only eaten it once?
All right, everybody, how many times have you eaten tartare?
I don't think I've ever had.
You've never had it?
Maybe once.
You've had it.
Somebody else ordered, maybe?
Wow, some of you were not on book tour with me, and it shows. That's wild. Is it because you are scared of it?
Yeah, I mean,
Visually, it's a little like.
Yeah.
Wow, visually it's a little ew.
wow.
Wow, doesn't see it a lot on menus. The whole thesis for this episode, cracks everywhere. Like, I guess my point in saying that at the start of this video is that, like, I feel like you used to only be able to get it or find it on, like, a traditional Parisian-style bistro menu. And now it sort of feels like it's like the crudo of apps. Or the crudo of meat, but crudo means raw, so remember how crudo was like everywhere all of a sudden? Everyone had a crudo, and it's always $78, and then you order it, and there's like one piece of fluke. And you're like, I'm depressed. This is like a 1/4 cup of finely chopped parsley. I'm just gonna add basically enough olive oil to make it saucy. I'm gonna measure just,
Wow.
I know, who is she? Before I slice this, see all that juice that's accumulated? That is very delicious to me. I don't want to waste that. I do want to pour it into my sauce so that I can pour it back over the steak. I'm going to let it sit, adjust the seasoning as I get closer to serving, which is imminent. And last, I'm going to toast my bread in the skillet. So I'm going to put this back on like a medium heat. I'll do half of this for now. I don't need the whole baguette, which I hope is the name of a charming bakery somewhere. The whole baguette. I would eat that. It's an imperfect science, but there you have it. So I'm just gonna add this cut side down. Time to carve the steak. You hear somebody talk about how to slice a steak. Often you'll hear something like, carve against the grain. And that can be difficult to assess with certain cuts. With a hanger steak, it's actually quite easy to assess because the grain is very apparent. This is the grain. Meaning if you're cutting against the grain, you want to cut across it, which breaks up membrane and tissue. And the nature of hanger steak is that it is a bit tougher than, say, like a sirloin. So you do want to cut against the grain, but that's not unlike your skirt steak or your flank steak. It's the same concept where like it is very tender meat, but unless you do kind of like break up those pieces with your knife and the way that you slice it, it can be a little chewy, which who cares really, but I care a little. And you might too.
I could care less.
Yeah, we can't care less. This is a really good sort of like steak dinner for two or even one, but you could also do sort of family style, make like a ton of steak, whether you're grilling or searing, whatever, slice it, put it on a big plate, spoon all the sauce over, serve with like a bag of potato chips, some French fries from McDonald's, this toasted bread, whatever. But putting a little anchovy on your grilled bread with a piece of meat and the sauce is pretty good. Even though we've toasted the bread in the meat juices from where we sear the steak, it still has so much more love to accept in the form of the meat juices from when you slice a steak, spooning some of this sauce directly into the bread. It's like a very good vehicle, though, as I mentioned, if you wanted to pick up French fries from your favorite spot and serve it alongside this, that would have actually been a really cool idea. Pretty good.
So if you want to go on the Alison Roman book tour,
Yeah, if you were like, what's it like going on a book tour? Make this tartare, make this steak like tartare, and you'll be immediately transported to the dining scene, the global dining scene of spring 2023.
bye byes.
Goodbye, everybody.
We love you.
We lobe you. Tartare for now, lobed ones. I feel like my Invisalign is like full of meat. A foul phrase I hope to never utter ever again.
Non-sponsored.
Not sponsored. Though,
Maybe.
maybe sponsor?